Do you have trouble asking the right questions to get to the underlying motives and problems that your clients need solved effectively? If so, you're going to want to stick around for today's episode as we dive deep into copy and writing a clear message that drives customer action with our special guest, Elle Ross. So stick around.
Can't say I never tried to warn you. And I'm just trying to tell you.
Hello and welcome to the Live Advantage Show. I'm your host, Ed Troxel, live streaming video specialist and online marketing expert over at edtroxel.com, where I help you stay relevant and grow your business here online. Now, today we have a special guest, but before we bring them on to the show, I want to introduce this quote that I read this weekend. It's a quote around fear. Now, fear is something that we all experience on so many different levels. So it's really important that we not only know it and value or acknowledge it, but also understand why we're having that. And with working with clients on stepping in front of the camera and being able to not only be in front of the camera, but actually go live, brings on a whole new level of fear. Am I right? If you're listening to this and you're thinking, yes, I'm fearful of stepping in front of the camera. I'm fearful of being live to the world. I'm fearful of what people are going to say and think. Like all those things are coming to mind. Go ahead, if you're on a social platform watching me right now, drop a comment down below. If you're listening to the podcast, well, you can always message me as well over at edtroxel.com. So the quote today is, quote, "Fear is a compass showing you where to go. If you're not afraid, you should be afraid. Do something that makes yourself experience fear. If you are afraid, too afraid to begin living your life, you don't need to be afraid. Fear is a sign that you are living your purpose. The more fear, the more you should celebrate, not cower." So I want to read that one last line there. Fear is a sign that you are living your purpose. After reading that, I thought, man, I wish I would have had this over 5 years ago when I started live streaming, because it would have made it so much easier for me to jump in with both feet and go live versus all the craziness that I had to go through. But it's all good. I have no regrets. I learned a lot, and that's why I'm here and I'm able to teach you. So I hope that that helps and that you really tune into that and start embracing that fear, because everything that you want is just on the other side. Now, today's episode is sponsored by my program, Real Estate Agents Go Live. Did you know that over 70% of homeowners are more likely to list with a realtor that uses video? 70%. So Real Estate Agents Go Live helps agents go get more listings and stand out as the go-to agent within their communities that they are serving using live streaming video. We go over everything from mindset to content strategy to episode planning, tech, and actually going live, as well as repurposing your live content over onto YouTube and anywhere else that you want to show up. You can learn more about Real Estate Agents Go Live at realestateagentsgolive.com. Now let's bring on our guest and dive into today's episode around content and copywriting. Welcome to the show, Ellie. How are you?
Hi, great. Thanks, Ed. I'm excited to be here. That was a great quote. I loved it. I'm excited to dive into what that means for a lot of us.
Yes, and I will say, let me have you introduce yourself, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the quote part. So go ahead and introduce yourself for everyone.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm really excited to be here on Ed's show. I'm Elle, and I'm a copywriter, like Ed said, and you're going to find out how I made a massive pivot to get here.
Yes, I can't wait for us to talk about that. That pivot is huge. Before we do that, I will say that it was just one of those moments this weekend where I read that quote, and then I realized what you had talked about with your fear, and the two just meshed really well. And then, of course, fear ties into, like I said, live streaming as well as copywriting, which we kind of were talking about before we started this live show. And we'll
Right.
dive a little bit more into that as well. But before we do, let's talk about your pivot, because that's really is what sets the tone here for everyone. And then we'll go into the copywriting.
Perfect. Well, if you had asked me or met me last March and asked me what I do, I would have told you that I was a registered dental hygienist, working in a private practice. I was a university level educator in my clinical program at my old school, which was a very cool job. Really loved it. But then the world kind of came to a halt, right? And when that happened, the funny thing is that I was 2 months away from going on my second maternity leave. So all of a sudden, here we are, everything shut down. I'm on maternity leave 2 months early, and I had this breathing room that I didn't have before to really stop and go, what could I do with this that would bring me to doing something that I'm passionate about, which is writing. And so I started looking into what courses I could take, reading books by the big ones, Ogilvy, Schwartz, Robert Bly's Handbook for Copywriting, and essentially looking at all the marketing messages surrounding us and learning from those, writing out the good ones, rewriting the bad ones. And now when it's that question, what do you do? I get to say, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm a freelance copywriter. I'm running my own business. And yeah, just like really pursuing the dream. I have an awesome support system in the main course that I took, which is the Comprehensive Copywriting Academy. So I have this like group of like-minded individuals that I get to, hang out with virtually and learn from them. And I'm learning every day. That's the cool thing about this job.
Yes, it's so, so important to have the right people and resources surrounding you, and to be open to that learning every single day, because that's what keeps us on our toes, and that's what sharpens our skills and really keeps us on that focus path of where we're trying to go.
100%. And I think that even the people that have been doing this for, decades, they're still very open to the fact that there's new things to learn all the time. And I mean, society is changing, right? The generations are changing. So learning more about copywriting, about marketing, about advertising is like literally an everyday thing.
Yeah, it is. And this all happened pretty quickly for you as well, right? With the transition and like just starting the business and just running with your feet on the ground there.
Yes, it happened a lot faster than I had really expected it to, because I thought, so I'm on maternity leave. I'm just going to I'll slowly start gearing things up. I'll get my website going. I'll get on social media, because that was, sort of a space that I abandoned after college and just sort of was like, okay, I'm done here, and had to get back online. And all of a sudden, when I did that, it just sort of came at me like a ton of bricks. And it was like, oh, okay, I guess I have clients now, and I'm a copywriter, and I'm doing this.
Yes, and that's the beauty. And how did it really kind of take off in terms of you started going through all the training, you started learning, you know that this is what you want to do, and how did the first client come around to be like, I need you for my copywriting service, for your copywriting services?
It was a super accidental, organic sort of connection on LinkedIn, sort of like what happened between you and I, just this sort of accidental connection where it was like, hey, this like-minded person that I can connect with, that we were honestly just having a totally unrelated conversation where it was like, hey, I want to connect with you. She was a web developer. I'm a copywriter. And then she actually ended up coming back to me and being like, hey, I need some of my own copywriting done. Would you help me with that? And yeah, that was my first client. I was just like, okay, cool. Yeah, great. Let's do this.
Yes. And that's the beauty of the connection. And that took place on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn. It was just like literally, I think she was one of my first 50 connections on LinkedIn.
And that just goes to show you the power of LinkedIn and bigger picture social media in general.
Yes.
But LinkedIn, because that's where we met too, and that's where I've been spending a lot more time, is that it is so different from so many other platforms. And it's, as others have said, it is an untapped social media platform. And it's a place where you really can connect with people on a whole nother level, on a human level, and they are supportive and they actually want to help you and move forward with you and see how you can collaborate with each other. Have you experienced that as well?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I know a lot of people are very, I'm on Twitter too, and you see a lot of people in the Twitter space. They're very like, oh, LinkedIn, right? People have very strong opinions, one or the other. And it's so funny because every time I see a tweet that's like, what's your least favorite social media platform and why is it LinkedIn? I'm like, what? Not me. I would say it's my favorite, honestly.
Yeah, I will say I was a while back. I was that person who LinkedIn was just it was just a little too stuffy for me. I just didn't feel comfortable. And recently, after spending more time on it, I'm like, this is a great place. Like, let's keep hanging out here.
Right. I just find that there is a supportive community. And I think that I've been very open about who I'm connecting with. But I do think that there is sort of the idea that you can curate your feed, right? You can curate the kind of people that you are connecting with and build more of a support system that way by connecting with the people that are supportive and, not maybe, even if they're not super active on it, but you like your comment, or sometimes they don't even like your post. They just, they drop into your messages and they say something, which I love, because it's not about the number of likes you get, obviously, right? Especially not on LinkedIn. It's about who's seeing that message and then who's reaching out to you because of it.
Yes, exactly. And it's a great tie into one of the questions that we had talked about earlier that ties into the fear part is, what's one fear you have pushed through? Because I know for me, LinkedIn was a fear for me to jump in and start being more myself on there, because I felt like I had to post something very professional and there couldn't be any mistakes and I couldn't show my personality. For whatever reason, that's what I was telling myself in my head.
Right.
And so I had to push through that. And once I did, the doors just open. I have met so many amazing people like yourself. And that was something I had to push through. And then before we started the live show, I talked a little bit about my newsletter, my weekly newsletter, the fear that I had to push through on that. So what's one fear that you had to push through?
The big fear for me about getting online was that I really wanted to sort of put up a website and maybe hide behind it a little bit, right? Like, okay, that's my online presence, right? Like, here's my website. I can direct people to it, and that'll be it. But it doesn't work like that, right? You can't just throw something up on the internet and hope that the Google gods categorize it with your SEO is perfect or whatever, and you're going to land on page. It doesn't work like that. So the big fear that I had to get past was actually putting myself out there, was showing up online, and I had to turn to social media to do that. And basically now the way I see my website, instead of something to hide behind, is it's a landing page. Really, the whole thing is a giant landing page. And my social media is that funnel that gets people to the landing page.
Yes,
Right.
social media is that funnel that gets you to that landing page. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's so difficult. Like you want to get people there, but you have to have a way to get people there, and you have to be kind of prepared to sort of, feels like you're exposing yourself on social media, right? Like you have to show up and be yourself, and not just with your friends and your family and the people that you're comfortable with, but you have to show up and be like your authentic self on social media. And frankly, that's terrifying.
Yes, 100%. All categories, whether you're writing a post, whether you're sending an email, whether you're showing up live in front of a camera, like all of those things still apply to that. And What I love about what you do is you have this way with words that makes it
Thanks.
easier, and it helps us to not only breathe a little bit easier on our end, but also touch on our audience a little bit easier as well. Like being able to really pull at their strings and being able to communicate with them in a way that they understand and that they want to know more. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you work with clients and how copy can get clearer through practice and working with you and other things that you might have, tools and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I love that question because I think it all comes down to one of my philosophies, and it's, a long time ago I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think most, effective business people probably at least know about this book, right?
Right.
And I love the idea that you begin with the end in mind. So when I work with a client, the first thing I have to know is what is the end goal here, right? What's the ultimate overarching goal, not just of the offer that you're making, but your business goal. And that ties into then what the offer is. What is the problem that your offer actually solves that makes it the solution that your audience has to have? So I really think that that's step one in any kind of marketing or advertising, is understanding what problem are you solving for?
Yes, that is huge. And when it comes to copy and that question, do you have exercises that you push people through and kind of coach them through? I know that you recently had a little mini training session going on with LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something you want to share about as well.
Sure. Yeah. That is what I was doing on LinkedIn, was talking about creating a brand voice and a guide that you use as a resource, right? So one of the big things is that your marketing messages can get really muddy if your voice is different across all your platforms. So if you're showing up in a lot of different places, like you have to be, and say you're outsourcing your writing and you've got someone writing your email funnel, someone else doing your web pages, and another person writing like your Facebook ads, and you don't have that brand voice super zeroed in on, you're gonna sound like you've got a split personality, right? Because everyone's just gonna write what they think your brand voice is. And if you haven't gone through the exercises yourself to really zero in on what that brand voice is, it's just gonna sound really muddy. It's inconsistent. I talk a lot about clarity, but also about consistency, because that consistency is one of those huge key factors in establishing trust and authority in yourself as a brand.
Yes, it's so true. And when people are going through this writing their copy, for example, what I normally would do is I'm thinking about the idea and then boom, I start to write it down. Now, I most likely am not just going to post that, because chances are it doesn't come out perfectly, and it doesn't need to be perfect, but it may not be even polished enough for that.
Right.
And so I'll go through different exercises, like maybe, letting it sit for a day, then come back to it. Any suggestions to help people when they're thinking about creating their brand voice and really thinking through the copy that they want to put out there in the world?
Yeah, definitely. Number one, of course, is knowing, like I said, what the problem is that you're solving for. And so not just what you perceive the problem to be, but what the problem really is. Sometimes we get really caught up in thinking we know what the problem is. And even though our offer might be the right solution, our marketing messages aren't communicating how that solution is what is going to help you with your real problem. It's just a lot of times, and it feels very, I know it feels so basic to say, you have to know what the real problem is. It's like, yeah, well, duh. But so many marketing messages really miss because they're talking to what that perceived problem is rather than what that real underlying problem is. And it's almost like it comes across as a band-aid solution to your audience then, right? They're going like, yeah, okay, but that's not the actual problem that I needed solved. So then you don't get me. I don't need your solution. So I think the very most important thing when you're writing copy is to know what problem you're solving for and hit on those benefits.
Yes. And I'm sure for those who are listening, you are probably thinking, okay, I get this. Like, I know I got to figure out the problem. I thought I had the problem figured out. I had all this written down. Like, you're normal. If you're going through this, like this spinning these wheels, especially if you're by yourself doing all of this.
Yes, so true.
It's just one of those things that we all go through this. And so I don't want you to get discouraged and not want to put anything out there after hearing this. I want you to really just take a step back and hear what we're talking about. Write things down, see what you can do with that information, like revisit whatever it is that the problem is that you're trying to solve, and see, does that make sense for your audience and for putting it out there. And I don't know, sometimes you have to just test it and see what happens.
So true. Testing is a huge part of copywriting and marketing, right? You have to know. I mean, even if you're going to write, like, for instance, a Facebook ad, you're not going to write one Facebook ad and just say like, there, I'm done. Like, I hope it works. You're going to write like 3 different ads, and you might end up mixing and matching, right? Your text to your image to your headline, and playing with those until you've tested all the elements of that ad and come back with the perfect ad. So it really is about stepping back, big picture, and talk to your audience, right? Like, know your audience, yeah, but talk to them. You can find out a lot about what their real problems are by circumventing, like, not necessarily asking, what is your problem? Because sometimes as consumers, we can't even articulate what our problem is, right? Like, we know we have a problem, but we might not even know like what the real problem is. We might give you that Band-Aid high level, like, oh, here's what I even perceive the issue to be. But then if you ask the questions about how they feel, I talk a lot about like feelings, and I know it sounds a little bit like, oh yeah, okay. But if you say to someone like, how does this problem make you feel? What are your specific pain points? How do they make you feel? And then how would you feel if you actually had a solution? That's going to help you so much when you're writing your messages, when you're doing your copy that you know now. So you can take that and go, okay, I know that this feeling is a pain point for my audience. How do I flip that pain point on its head and turn that into the benefit that my solution offers them?
Yes, exactly. Because sometimes, I know I've even done it in the past too, is we get the features and the benefits a little mixed up. And so it's
100%.
off clear to the audience that this is what's going to help them with their problems.
That's exactly what it is. It's mixing up features and benefits. And features, yeah, they're great. Features are awesome. I love features. But I love them because I can take them and then say, okay, but so what? Who cares that, your computer has a huge memory drive? Like, okay, so what does that mean to me as a consumer? Well, maybe it means that I'm going to be able to store more family memories on it, right? So what's the benefit, not just the feature?
Yes, so true. I love that you brought up tech, because I used to do that back in the days at Apple. I used to always talk about that. It's like, who cares how much space is on the drive in terms of the gig? Because it means nothing to you when you're thinking about your photos and your videos. Like, you're looking at those memories, not how many gigabytes is that?
Yeah, because if you're like the average consumer that really, like, I mean, when I bought my new laptop and my husband was telling me about all these features, right? I'm like, so like literally, so what? And if you ask that when you're writing your copy, if you could still answer the question of so what, like imagine that you have like a really snarky customer in front of you and you're telling them like all of these, listing out all these features, they're just going to be like, so what? And then you need to be able to answer that until they literally can't say, so what, one more time.
That is good. That's a good exercise for us all to remember and to go do, is answering that so what, because that's true. You know, there's so many things that we can do that our products and our services offer and can be a total, you know, full package of solutions, but everyone's coming to the table with one, maybe two things that they really are interested in solving. And that so what is definitely going to help them with that and help you with getting that message out there.
Yeah, 100%. It's literally how you dig into those deep benefits, which is what I'm all about. Like my whole thing is like, yeah, I'm going to dig in deep, right? And get underneath those surface level. Okay, this is what we think the problem is, to this is what the real problem is. And then here are the benefits of solving that problem.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about that. We still have some time here, about digging a little deeper. So somebody's been listening to this. They're thinking, yes, you know, I need to start practicing more with the copywriting. I need to possibly even outsource and hire you, and or at least look into your trainings that you have.
Yeah.
What's some exercises maybe that they should walk away with today, or an exercise that they should walk away with? I like the so what part. I think that one is perfect for people, but maybe they're just getting started. Should they start listing out like what service or what offer they have, and then maybe all the features that they think, and then maybe all the benefits that they think, or how should they go about all that?
A really fantastic exercise is, like you say, to list out, so this is my offer, and then these are the features of my offer, and take each individual feature and then say, okay, what is the problem that this specific feature solves? And when is that the most important? And then once you know that this is the problem that feature solves, this is why it's important, then you can ask yourself, what is the benefit of this feature? Because you pretty much already answered it. You know what the problem is that you're solving, you know when it's important. So now you can really spin that into a benefit, that feature is not just a flat feature anymore. Now it's something that that your audience feels like, I have to have this, because you're connecting with them, then you're relating to them, and it's not just like, you're not just spewing words out on a piece of paper, which is sometimes what features feel like. It's just like, and the more features that a product has, you kind of glaze over and go like, okay, this is just gibberish now. I don't even know what this means. Versus saying like, here is the benefit that you're going to get out of it, and here's why that matters.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point too. When we start listing too many features, that overwhelm comes in, and then we start to confuse people, and then it's like, okay, we lost them. So it's sounding like less is more in this case as well.
Yes, less is definitely more, in the sense of really what you want to do is you want to pick out those really high level, those deep benefits. And sometimes when you start listing out like so much, like you say, it just ends up being overwhelmed. So pick your strongest ones and definitely use those to leverage more of your copywriting, and more of the messaging you're putting out there are your really strong benefits, like the reasons why something you're doing really solves that problem that you know your audience has.
Yes. Wow. That's good. We have some great exercises and homework out of this episode for all of us to take with that. Did you have anything else that you wanted to mention that maybe we didn't cover yet?
I don't think so. I feel like we unpacked a lot here, Ed. Like, I think that there's a lot for people to sort of digest and, really, really think about how you can just take that solution that you have and work backwards to what's the problem, and then what's that real problem. And then from there, once you know what the problem is, like, you you can really just go great guns with it, because you'll just start figuring out like what your benefits are out of that.
So true. And that was such a beautiful wrap up. Well done.
Well, thank you.
You're such a pro. I appreciate you being here for us. I have it in the show notes, but where can people find out more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to make more connections on LinkedIn. So I'm LR on LinkedIn, or and that's ELLE. Or you can reach out on my website, which is clearcopyworks.com. And yeah, I mean, I'm really happy to connect with all of your listeners.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here, and thank all of you for tuning in. Even if you're listening and watching on the replay, I appreciate it. Be sure to comment if you are watching this on social, and we will see you next week at 9 a.m. on Tuesday. And I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of the week. And until next time, remember to show up, deliver, and engage with your audience online. And we'll see you later. Take care.